This is Resolute and the Resolute Podcast, where we are discipling and developing men to live with conviction. I am Vince Miller, your host, and today we're in Holy Week. Today is Friday, and we are discussing the topic of trusting God's plans. Men, welcome back to the program. If this is your first time tuning in, well, thank you for joining us. The Resolute Podcast is produced multiple times every week. We have Resolute study guides that go along with this podcast for your men's group, found on the website for members at beresolute.org. Come back often. Feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed, or you can find us in iTunes. And you can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. All the links are located on the homepage of the website. So let's dive in. Today is Friday of Holy Week, and as I've said all week, I think it's a great task to spend some time this week reflecting on the passion of Christ and the final events of his life. My goal this week was to be your guide as we come into Sunday. And you know, I think we often unintentionally cheapen Resurrection Sunday when we get too busy with our week and we don't take the time to reflect on the events of this particular week in our history as Christian men. This year, I've been challenging you each day with a short thought as we travel the Passion Week with Jesus Christ. And it is my hope that you are sharing these insights with a friend or maybe a family member to influence their experience on Sunday this year as well. Today is Friday, often known to Christians around the world as Good Friday. Now, there's a lot of recorded activity surrounding Jesus on this particular day in history. I believe the best way for me to organize it for you is to give you a timeline of today's events and to see them through 6 trials of Jesus and the 7 statements of Jesus on the cross. So first, here are the 6 trials on a timeline leading up to 3 p.m. First, 1:30 to 3 in the morning, very early, is the first trial before Annas the high priest. Annas is the first appointed high priest in the Roman Empire. Annas is simply trying to coerce an accusation from others that will carry weight to justify a Roman crucifixion. Also, between this time of 1:30 and 3 a.m. is a second trial where Jesus appears before the Sanhedrin. This is a religious trial. Remember, Jesus is taken to appear before the Sanhedrin, which is a ruling council of religious leaders, and here he will be condemned by religious leaders. Very early in the morning. Then between 5 and 6 a.m., the wee hours of the morning at dawn, there's a third trial. This third trial is during a time period where Peter denies Jesus. Remember, the rooster crows. And then 6 to 7 a.m. is a fourth trial. He's taken now before Pilate, who is the 5th prefect of the Roman province of Judea. This begins an engagement now with political or government officials. Now, you have to remember, Jews could not crucify men. The religious leaders are hoping to persuade the government to act on their behalf, which is the reason to appear before Pilate. Then 7 to 7:30, about 30 minutes here, there's the 5th trial before Herod Antipas, who is a tetrarch or a ruler in the kingdom, a son of Herod the Great. He oversees about a quarter of the kingdom, and Herod is essentially looking for a miracle from Jesus. Then from 7:30 to 8:30 is the 6th trial. Again, Jesus is taken back to Pilate, which leads to 8:30 to 9, 30 minutes there where Jesus is scourged. Roman soldiers mock him. Judas thus hangs himself, and then Jesus is escorted till Golgotha. And then between 9 and 3, we have the time of Jesus' crucifixion. 6 hours today on this Friday. Now on the cross, we hear 7 statements from Jesus Christ, and I want to read the text to you so you can hear Jesus' final words. First is a statement of forgiveness. Luke 23, verse 34. Jesus says, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Powerful words by Jesus. Next is a statement of salvation. Luke 23, verse 43, truly I say to you that today you will be with me in paradise, as he looks to the criminals located to his side. Third is a statement of relationship. John 19, verses 26 through 27. Woman, behold your son. Son, behold your mother. Fourth is a statement of what appears to be abandonment. Matthew 27, verse 46, and Mark 15, verse 34. My God, why have you forsaken me? Next is a statement of distress from John 19, verse 28. I thirst. Next, a statement of triumph. John 19, verse 30. It is finished. And finally, a statement of reunion. Luke 23, 46. Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. You know, with all the aforementioned, I just want to focus on one statement of Jesus today. It's the statement from Matthew 27, verse 46, and Mark 15, 34, which reads, my God, why have you forsaken me? You know, for many insiders and outsiders to the Christian religion, these words are very disturbing to hear from Jesus Christ. They appear to be a cry for help, or perhaps a cry of abandonment by God. And because of this, many down through the millennia have pointed to this single phrase as proof that Jesus was in fact not God, or that God is not real since he does not intervene, or even more, that God does not care about humanity since he doesn't even care about his only Son. You know, in addition to all these deductions that people have made down through time, this statement appears to be very damning itself. The fact that this is one of the final statements by Jesus is very interesting, isn't it? For why would the founder of the Christian religion in his last moments and his last breath proclaim such controversial words like, my God, why have you forsaken me? I mean, if Jesus had a publicist or a personal agent or a marketing manager in those days that happened to be on hand, they would have prohibited him from making a statement like this, since the phrase would be poorly interpreted and personally damaging. However, I want to suggest that his words at this moment were the greatest of all the 7 statements he would make on the cross. I mean, if we can overcome what we think this means, we can begin to understand what it actually means. I don't know if you know it or not, but this statement is a quote from the Old Testament. It is a sound bite from the book of Psalms. And as you read through the Psalms, you will quickly discover that David wrote a majority of these songs coming out of the experiences and challenges of his life. These songs were his dramatic way of praising God's work in his life. And if you dare to read the Psalms, you will discover David's story is all over them. However, Psalm 22 is a little bit of an anomaly. I want to read a few lines of it so you can get the feel of it. Here's how it begins. Are you ready for this? Are you ready for these words? Here it is, Psalm 22. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me from the words of my groaning? Oh my God, I cry by day, but you do not answer, and by night, but I find no rest. Yet you are holy, enthroned on the praises of Israel. In you our fathers trusted. They trusted in you, delivered them. To you they cried and were rescued. In you they trusted and were not put to shame. But I am a worm and not a man, scorned by mankind and despised by the people. All those who see me mock me. They make mouths at me and they wag their heads. Look, he trusts in the Lord, they say. Let him deliver him. Let him rescue him, for he delights in him. Yet who are you? He who took me from the womb, and you made me to trust you at my mother's breasts. On you I was cast from my birth, and from my mother's womb you have been my God. Be not far from me, for the trouble is near, and there is none to help. I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax, it is melted within my breast. My strength is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue sticks to my jaws. You lay me in the dust of death, for dogs encompass me, a company of evildoers encircles me. Listen carefully. They have pierced my hands and feet. I can count all my bones. They stare and gloat over me. They divide my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. But you, O Lord, do not be far off. O you, my help, come quickly to my aid. Deliver my soul from the sword, my precious life from the power of the dog. For he has not despised or abhorred the affliction of the afflicted, and he has not hidden his face from him, but has heard when he cried to him. All the ends of the earth shall remember and turn to the Lord, and all the families of the nations shall worship before you. Great words. So let me ask you this question. When did David ever experience this? When? The answer was never. What David wrote down here was not an occurrence of his life. It was a prophetic song that captured the heart of Jesus on the cross. Therefore, men, these words are not the cry of abandonment. They are not a cry for help. Jesus' words are a recollection of prophetic words that David wrote down. And David's words are capturing Jesus' reflections on the cross about the story God predestined for Jesus' life. You know what these words are? My God, why have you forsaken me? For me, these words are words of great hope and victory and power. They're God's final stamp on a story that he had been writing since the dawn of time, a story of the redemption of my life, your life, a story of atonement for sin and a redemption of brokenness. Never see Jesus' words on the cross as a cry of abdication by God, but rather as perfect fulfillment that God patiently waited to unfold in partnership with his Son. This is just Jesus recalling the patience and the beauty of God's story that he had been writing and how Jesus was an integral part of it. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of years of planning, all coming to culmination in a moment when Jesus is taking his final breath. All Jesus is doing for us is putting a stamp on the fact that his life and his death and soon-to-be resurrection are fully a part of a plan, not an abandonment on a cross. So today, my challenge for you is this: stretch yourself to trust more in the sovereignty of God. Spend time worshiping God for his care and thoughtfulness in your life, even in the challenges that you currently face. And yes, I know there are challenges for you today, but extend more faith that God will save you, that he will come to your rescue, and that he will redeem you from the challenges that you are facing today. And hear these words from Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. Well, gentlemen, that's the show. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed our time today, because I have with you, I hope that you'll pass along this podcast to other men you know. Just share the feed with someone and encourage them to listen. So guys, I love you. Have a great Friday. Have a great Friday. And trust in the sovereignty of God. And we will see you right back here next time for another edition of the Resolute Podcast.